My name's Daniel Zuj. I'm a lecturer in psychology. I recently moved here from Tasmania, Australia. So I've been living in Swansea for about 6-7 months now. My research interests are in associative fears, so how people learn to fear innately fearful things like spiders and heights, but also how people learn to fear novel stimuli. So what I tend to use in the lab are things like coloured circles. Okay, so I can condition people to fear red and blue circles, and then I'm interested in seeing how those sorts of fears subside and come back down. Okay, so this is really relevant to certain psychological disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder and certain phobias. So if we can get under the mechanisms of what's happening here and what sort of things influence this process, then we can try and adjust those things in a treatment setting. So some of the research projects that I'm running over the next year and a half are looking into those associative fear processes. Okay, so I'm interested particularly in some of the everyday behavioural aspects that might influence how we learn fears. Okay, so these might be as simple as smoking. Okay, so for example, over a third of all people with anxiety disorders and mental disorders are chronic smokers. Okay, so in the sense that there's a sort of feedback loop there where the anxiety disorder symptoms can lead to cigarette cravings, and then smoking can also result in more severe symptoms. Okay, so it's a bit of a negative feedback loop there. And so I'm interested in looking at, for example, how does smoking affect those sorts of associative fears and how people might extinguish those associative fears. So that could happen in the sense of a cigarette craving. Okay, so one of the things that we know about cigarette cravings is that the stronger the craving is and the more intense it is, then the more that can actually impair certain cognitive processes of tasks that you might be doing at the time. So one study that I'm looking at is the effect of these cigarette cravings on associative fear learning and extinguishing those associative fears. And another project that I'm looking at running over the next 12 months is just looking at the different cognitive processes that are impaired when people are experiencing a craving. That might be in an applied setting or in an experimental setting where we're looking at different standardized cognitive tests. Okay, so in an applied setting, I've conducted research before showing that mock jurors for a legal trial actually showed poorer memory for the trial details if they were currently experiencing a craving for a cigarette. So I'm looking at trying to adapt that to different scenarios and where this might be affected. So if any students want to get in touch with me to participate in some of this research or to help conduct some of this research, you can find links to my contact details on my staff webpage.